Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Buckeyes of all ages, you are now tuning into the Boomcast. Introducing first, it's your host, NFL vet, Buckeye legend, Daniel Boom Herron. Accompanying him is the Boom Squad. First up, from the presidential penthouse, we got former coal miner, fitness industry expert, Mr. Corey Gregory. Over here at the Tyler Sports Zone, we have Athens' very own Tyler Treadway. Then we got Philo's very own Mr. Tyler T. Lever. And then, of course, here's the doghouse. I'm the graphic gangster Cole Susak. To my right is the king of Web3 Trayvon the Air. And you are now tuning in to the Boomcast. The Boomcast is brought to you by Max for Muscle and Sam Adams Beer. Let's go to the show.
All right, let me hit you with some stats real quick of our guest today. Y'all ready?
Ready.
All right.
Yeah.
A junior rugby standout who's named MVP of Team USA on both the 19 Junior World Champions in 2007 and the Under 20 Junior Worlds in 2008.
Dog.
Without playing a down of high school football. He walked on at The Ohio State University as a special teams player in 2009.
Dog.
In his 36 career games at The Ohio State University, he had 30 special teams tackles from 2009 to 2011. And Pro Football Weekly described him as, and I quote, a player who races down the field like a bat out of hell and hunts returners like a heat-seeking missile.
Dog.
At his Ohio State Pro Day, he ran a 4.47, had a 39.5-inch vertical jump, and bench pressed 225 for 23 reps.
That's a
dog.
That's right.
Drafted by the New England Patriots in the 6th round of the 2012 NFL Draft.
Dog.
A member of the USA Rugby Sevens 2016 Summer Olympic team.
Dog.
And 3-time Super Bowl champion with the New England Patriots. Dog. Nate Ebner's in the house! Hey!
Appreciate that. I've had a lot of intros. That was up there.
Bring an A game, baby.
What a
Hey,
list
I was gonna say, God, Lee.
Right?
I
mean,
thought you gonna stop. I don't know. Hey, how many dogs we got with him? You know what I'm saying? Like Jesus.
Hey, and author of the book, he brought it in today. Finished strong. I'm excited to read this too.
Yeah.
It's sick, man.
Sure.
So thanks for joining us, man.
Yeah, no worries. I'd love you guys anytime, man.
That was good. Boom. What you got?
Oh man, I'm just so excited to have you here, man. As a former teammate, man, and a friend. You know what I'm saying? Even a guy I got to play against in the league, man. It's an honor to have you here, man. And you know how we do it, man. We kind of just, gonna take you back, try to let the people know who you are, get to know you a little bit better. Obviously, if you get his book, you definitely get to know him and learn more about him. But while we have you here, just kind of go back to memory lane, just kind of tell us about where you're from, your upbringing, the whole.
For sure. I mean, I grew up in Columbus, but more specifically Springfield, Ohio, out there. Family-owned junkyard. Grew up in the junkyard with my dad, and that was kind of like my upbringing. And I talk a lot about that in the book. The first half of my book is really about my relationship with him and that upbringing, very unique. I didn't realize it was so unique until, you kind of go to high school and you see all these kids just didn't live like that, So that was kind of where the foundation was set in the junkyard. But I went to high school at Hilliard-Davidson. Played a lot of rugby, played all kinds of sports growing up, but rugby was kind of what I gravitated towards.
Your dad played college rugby, right?
My dad played rugby.
Champion, right?
He played on the highest level. He played in the Maccabea Games, which is like the Jewish Olympics. So he represented the USA in that, and he was just kind of one of those guys, those 80s, 90s rugby players that just went out to get his. He would say get his smashes in, and he liked.
Is that what his reference? He would say get his smashes.
He wanted to get his smashes in.
All right.
He'd say the rugby field on Saturdays is the only place you can go to beat the shit out of somebody and not go to jail. And that was kind of his thing. That and chasing robbers in the junkyard. We talk about that.
Yeah.
So, but no, I kind of learned rugby from him and gravitated towards it. Obviously, I was a decent enough athlete and, had so much experience at a young age with rugby. I was kind of better than most kids in the U.S. at that time. And that took me all over the world at a young age, all over the country. And played a lot of rugby, played in 3 Junior World Cups, like you mentioned, and then found my way at Ohio State and just kind of was done with the junior rugby stuff and, wanted to play football my senior year. I didn't. They won the Division I state championship at Hilliard-Davidson.
Yeah.
So I was like, damn, I missed that. But just kind of it was a perfect storm, I was playing international rugby against some of the best players in the world. We played South Africa. 22 of their 26-man roster was under full contract.
Wow.
And so I'm used to playing that level of competition. Then I come back to Ohio State, and it's like club rugby in the United States. And it's just, no offense to them, that's just what it was. And I wanted more. I put too much into it, and then I'm at Ohio State. The football players are gods, and I'm like, nah. And, so it was a perfect storm. I decided to walk onto the football team, and that was actually the last conversation I had with my dad. He would come into Columbus, and we'd work out at the ACC. Don't know if you're familiar with that, the Athletic Club of Columbus. And I told him, I want to walk onto the football team. And, the kind of goal there in that conversation was, don't play football at Ohio State just to play football at Ohio State. Like, you have a really good rugby career. Like, if we're going to do this, try to make it to the NFL. Because if you can play at Ohio State, you can play in the NFL.
Facts.
And I knew that. So it was like, put rugby on the side, go all in on football, and see what you can do. And that was the last conversation we had. Next day, he was murdered at the junkyard. And so that was like a tough time for me, kind of dropped out. But about 2 months later, I ended up walking onto the football team. I would say that was probably the lowest point in my life. Me and him, again, I talk about that relationship with him in the book, but our father-son relationship I'd put against anybody's. He was like a best friend. It wasn't just like, a dad. Yeah. And my mom was a huge part of pulling me out of that. I think I knew some friends growing up who had gone through some stuff where their father wasn't in their life, or they lost a parent, but their mothers or whatever just kind of coddle them. And, my mom, to have the strength to say to me, you need to live a life that your dad would be proud of. He would hate to see him dying ruin your life. And, she was in tears telling me that, but the strength to say that because she needed to, not because she wanted to, and make me feel comfortable was kind of an eye-opener for me. And then I kind of changed my perspective from super angry and, wanting to get in trouble and all that to just gratitude, honestly. Yeah. Like, just so thankful that I had that type of a man in my life raise me. I had more of a father in my 19 years than most people do in a lifetime. That, I had somebody that put that much time and energy and love into me, and just like how fortunate I was to have that, and the foundation he laid for me as a young man, and what that did for me. So I just changed my mindset to one of gratitude, and then I went to work, and I walked onto the football team at Ohio State. Boom, I'm sure is familiar with, I had the Finish Strong bands on. That was kind of his thing for me. The first year I was there, I probably didn't say 5 words. I was just like locked in. I was super serious. And I would say that kind of attributes to a lot of my success. Like, I wasn't going to a 6 a.m. workout to just kind of like survive through it. Like, every chance I got when I first was there was to like get better and just like try to whoop people's asses. Like, I was constantly super serious about it, like I wanted this to come true for my dad. So that's kind of where it started. And I will also say walking onto the football team at Ohio State was probably the most humbling experience I ever had in my life, because I'm one of the best rugby players in the country at a young age. I think I'm a good athlete, but then I go to start playing football, and I'm like, there's a lot to this.
Well, and mind you didn't play high school football. Like, right. You're going to, like you said, where most guys can go pro from, and you're going where you didn't even play like junior football. Right. So it's outrageous.
That was the hard part for me.
No football at all in high school, and then to go to like play for one of the top programs in college football. Yeah. That enough says a lot, and
I want to swing it back to the junkyard real quick, Nate. So it's like, obviously, the way that you're even talking about your dad damn near makes me want to cry. It's like, so it's emotional because of how you feel, but like, give us some 3, 4, 5, like give us some stuff, like certain things he would stand on, certain things he taught you that how to, you know, just the way you operate. Like any of that stuff that the listeners can grab, man, would be awesome.
You know, I think when you ask me that quickly, things that come to mind are like accountability. I would say, you know, at a young age, when I first was able to get my motorcycle license at like 15 and a half, you can get your permit for that. He had this little Vespa scooter. So the first day I could get it, he made me go get that test, and then he'd give me the keys, and he'd make me go unlock the yard. So that was my responsibility, like go on my own, take the scooter to the yard, unlock it. Then he'd give me money. He was like, go get us breakfast. Like he just kind of gave me these tasks and that I was accountable for. You know, something he would say, I would say hard work is another thing I think about. He would say like, we got to crush the cars. Cause like, that's the main cash flow in a junkyard is selling the steel. And he's like, the cars won't crush themselves. You know, if it's raining, if it's snowing, if it's hot out, it's like you just got to do the work.
Crush the cars.
You got to crush the cars. So, you know, it doesn't really matter how you feel. You just got to get it done. You know, hard work, accountability. And another thing I would say is just like having good character. You know, he would take me to chase robbers with him. And the robbers were always there, either after hours on a weekday or on the weekends. They were always stealing. You know, Springfield's arguably one of the worst cities in Ohio. You know, highest violent crimes rate in the state. And you know, so we'd go, and at a young age, I just watch him, you know, catch these robbers, and he'd beat the shit out of them. I'd say the first person I ever tackled was a robber at the junkyard, and you know, he just kind of. Probably 15 or 16. Just too young, shouldn't have been doing it.
I was saying, you're like, hey.
He was there. I remember being really young, like 12, and he gave me a baseball bat, and he's like, hey, if anything ever happens, you just come and you swing that thing as hard as you can. We'll ask questions later. But like, he always handled business with those guys. Like he would just take it to a level. Like they were there to steal something, and he was like, it was just a level that they weren't ready for, and he was a violent dude anyway, so it just was like, but ultimately the message to me was like, there's a consequence to your actions, and you know, when you're doing the wrong things, like at some point you're gonna, like karma's a bitch, you're gonna pay the piper, like it's gonna come to you in some way. And you know, one time I was stealing some shit, like as a young kid doing something dumb, and I just remember that heart to heart. He's like, man, like, why do you think I take you to the junkyard and we chase down those pieces of shit? They're the scum of the earth, is what he would call them. Like, you know, people who steal and cheat and lie. And, you know, I think ultimately what I'm saying is like, he taught me to have good character, and that he showed me through a unique way, chasing robbers and beating them up and stuff. But, ultimately it was like, do the right thing, you know, earn what you get. Yeah. And, so a lot of foundational things, but those three, you know, having good character, accountability, and hard work were really those things. You could throw discipline in there as well.
What about consistency? I'm like obsessed with consistency.
Yeah, I would say that kind of goes into the cars won't crush themselves thing. Like, you just got to show up and do the work. You know, no one's going to do the work for you type of deal. And you just got to come every day ready to work, no matter what the circumstances are, no matter how you feel. And some days you're not going to feel like it, but you just got to get it done. And those are the days that you get better from. Yeah. And I mean, consistency is part of that as well.
I think the what's wild is that as he obviously passed on, unfortunately, that's like where your life shifts into this whole different stratosphere of like where you got to use obviously all of that stuff he taught you. It's when you kind of laid it out that way, I was unaware of that. It's unbelievable that you're able to then take on that and say, all right, Dad, I'm not just going to go to Ohio State to say I walked on and made the team. Right. Motherfucker, I'm about to get drafted. Like, that's a whole different, that every day, I'm sure when you were there and those days that you mentioned, which are more often than not, like people think like it's always so great because you're in that position, but it's fucking hard. All this business shit, all this, it's always hard. And you like, when you can lean on something that deep, that's why you're a different dude, bro. Like, and I knew that from the first time I met you. Like, when the fire's lit at that level, it doesn't go out.
Right.
And that's what people don't really understand.
Right.
And that's where it propels people to into different.
Well, I would say, I would never wish my perspective on another person because I don't think anyone should lose anyone they love the way in which, I lost my dad. But because of that attitude of gratitude, because I realize how fragile life is, you're built different. You see life differently than everyone else. And I wish I really do wish society had a different perspective. The majority of us don't really get the sacrifices that have been made before us and just how lucky we are. And we don't have enough, attitude of being grateful. And, but again, I don't wish that perspective on anyone, but because of that, it absolutely has made me see life very clearly and what's important and what's not, for sure.
Yeah. It's like an intangible difference that you would never wish again, but because that's what you were dealt with, you took it, you used it as a positive.
It's made me who I am. Yeah. Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. Good, boom.
I mean, obviously, you're a great rugby player. When did you know, like, okay, I'm good at this. Like, I can do this. I can go to the next level. I could be in the Olympics. I could be great.
That's a good question. Can't say I really thought about that a lot, but I would say looking back on it, probably when I was like 15 or 16, because there was no like age grade rugby when I was growing up. It was like, if you want to play rugby, you got to play with the men.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I played in my first game at 13. In a B-side men's game, and like, dudes trying to like run through me and stuff, but like, no, I would say when I was 16 years old, I was on the men's team in Columbus, and we went to nationals for sevens, and I was one of our best players, and I was 16 playing with men, and then, we go to nationals playing against the best men that ultimately that's where the U.S. selections take place. The head coach of the USA team is at that, club nationals, and he's selecting guys to come to a camp, and that's how they pick the national team. So I'm playing against the best guys in the country, and I was one of the better players at that tournament at 16. So that's probably when I knew like I could do this.
That realization had to be like, wait, I'm like handling these guys.
Yeah, well, I can play at this level.
Yeah,
and,
that's cool.
I'm like I knew I wasn't like I didn't probably grow into my body till I was like 18.
Mm-hmm.
I was like skinny. Like 16, I was skinny. Like the jersey was like,
hanging on
me. Yeah, but my skill level just was at a different level than most of the guys. So I knew I could do it if physically I grew into that. So I'd say around then, and then I got selected to go to the men's selection camp for the sevens team. And, again, at 16 years old, all the best guys in the country, average age at that time was probably 27. I'm 16 and
damn.
Just running around.
That's a big difference.
Running around with these dudes. Yeah, it was nuts.
And they're grown. I mean, 27's grown.
Yeah,
bro.
there were a couple ex-NFL dudes in there. And, he's a 16-year-old running around with them.
So basically you was like the Mike Tyson of rugby.
I guess.
You know what I'm saying?
Nate's like, can I clip that for my Instagram?
Yeah, no, there were a couple young dudes that were coming up, but like I just had such a jump from I was around rugby at 6, 7 years old, passing the ball around. Just my skill level was at a place, for 10 years practicing passing and catching and reading the game. Most guys don't get into rugby until they're in high school or even college.
Not at that time in the U.S. either.
Definitely not.
It was your family business, though.
Right,
I mean, really.
exactly.
And then you was out here chasing robbers, so you was getting the
Yeah, I
conditioning,
was
the
getting
speed,
it, yeah.
It's like
and
some
the
real life
tackling,
Rocky
so
shit, bro.
Yeah, well,
you was just prepared for this.
Right. No, the rugby was definitely my lane. And, like I said, growing up, we did a lot of stuff. Every sport, I was good at squash. We played a lot of squash, like just random. But rugby was just something I really gravitated towards. Obviously, the violence of it, like tackling, my dad being who he was, like we were physical. And but there was like a skill set to it that I developed that really separated me, I would say.
I would argue to say your dad wouldn't have been surprised that you made it.
Yeah, maybe not. I don't know. I don't think so. Yeah, he thought highly of me, but there's still got to do it, right?
Yeah,
So,
facts.
So you played all those sports. Did you ever play football? Like, did you ever get in the pads?
I played, when I was like peewee football. You know, I was a running back. You know how that goes. They just hand you the ball and you run around everybody.
You was probably the fastest kid.
You just kind of – and thered be like one other good player on the other team, and it basically is like you versus him. But like I played I think I played in 7th grade football, but you know.
Were you already in the were you into rugby at that
I
point?
played in 7th grade. Right? I'm just saying.
Were you into rugby at that point?
Yeah, I was always playing rugby. I played basketball until I was a sophomore in high school. And
what made you stop playing?
I just was on the Junior World Cup team, and I was just playing rugby like pretty much all year round. So it was, you know, I could play basketball, but I wasn't going to be 6'5". I liked basketball.
Yeah.
But, you know, the reason I was good at basketball was because I was like explosive.
Right.
And I could play good defense, and I could like run and jump higher, but I wasn't like a great shooter or anything. And ultimately, like, I gravitated towards physical sports.
Right.
Yeah, so like playing football in pads and then playing rugby, did you have like the taste of like, I want to play without the pads because this rugby is a little bit tougher. I got to be more on my edge in this sport than compared to football?
That's a deep question for me because, you know, you get into like the philosophies of the game. And for me, rugby is a much safer game because like you can't hit somebody unless they have the ball. So like I know I'm going to get hit or I know I'm going into contact to tackle somebody. So as soon as I pass it, like Boom can't like lay me out now. Like it'll be a penalty on him. So it's like a safer game from a philosophical standpoint. And like all 11 guys on defense in football are trying to tackle that one player. And that if the corner's coming in to turn him back inside, he can just shoot his gun, blow his knee out or just dive at him. Like you can't do that in rugby. Like we're all marked up man for man. As soon as like I miss a tackle, now Boom's got to make a tackle on my guy, and his guy's open. So as soon as he commits to my guy, he's just going to pass it. Like you got to be a very efficient tackler, and because of that, again, the game is it's safer. It's not going just full speed to try to blow somebody up.
I've never
That was a question.
say it that way.
That was a question I was going to ask you. Like, which one do you think, like rugby or football, is like more violent and more like?
Football is way more violent. It's just like, I mean, just look at kickoffs, bro. Like we get a 60-yard
Well, you see now
run.
they don't even.
Well, now they're trying to take it out of the game. It's pretty stupid if you think about it. Like
And
you
we
run
know
full
all about
speed,
it.
Yeah,
and then
you
there's
guys
like
both do.
you'll be running down and like your head's on a swivel because like anybody could take you out at any time. But at the same time, you're running full speed to somebody who's running full speed back at you, and you either got to blow up a blocker or go blow up the returner. Like it's just a violent, full
Super
speed,
violent.
100% effort on every rep thing. Like rugby is 90%, 95, but there's no stopping. So you just can't maintain that level of exertion. The difference between going 90 and 100 is the difference between, you know, fatigue instantly. And, you know, being able to go at a high level, but not all the way there is what makes players good. But I would say back to your question, like tackling in rugby, I was really efficient and good at it. And that I could translate to football. Like if I got my hands on somebody, you know, that was like my dad's thing. Like, you know, I have a chapter in the book called Cowards Can't Tackle. And it's, that was kind of his thing is like, you know, you get your hands on somebody, they got to go to the ground, you know, you got to commit to tackling somebody. And, it made me a good tackler in football. It kept my head out of tackles. You know, you see some of the worst form tackling. And sometimes I remember when I first got to Ohio State, I'd see some guys go into tackles. And I would just be like, like, yeah, you have a helmet on, but like, man, like you break your neck. Like, what are you doing? And I was taught a very good way, a safer way to tackle for sure.
So I want to talk about this, the walk-on process. So like, obviously you go there. Did the coaches know that you were like an elite level rugby guy, or did you kind of?
I think they
keep
knew
that
a
hush?
little bit. Luke Fickle knew who I was because his neighbor was like one of my dad's best friends that was a rugby player. So like they knew I was like a rugby player coming in, but I think that's about the extent of it. You know, just a quick hit on Jim Tressel, greatest character person I've ever met in my life. I walk on. I don't know him at all. He knew who my stepdad was, and my stepdad's niece and her major, all tied back to me, and I didn't even know her name. And
There you go. That's exactly.
I'm like, this guy is a special person. You know, maybe like why with someone who has so much going on with all these football players and the university and being the leader that he is, know anything about this kid that's going to come walk onto the team, let alone know my name, but know that to that extent about me as someone who's contributed nothing to them. Like, he's a special dude. But anyways, yeah, I don't think they knew a lot about me.
Unreal,
yeah, his attention to detail is next level.
So what was that transition process like? Obviously, they're pushing you through like some crazy drills. Obviously, your technique is probably fundamental, but also like mentally, you have the entire thing with your dad going on, trying to learn a new sport. Like, bring us through that. Like, what were those few weeks like?
The walk-on process? The walk-on process was like kind of like a pro day, sort of, you know, like.
And how many people would you say was there?
There were probably like 60 to 70 guys walking on, but I would say 50 of the 70 had their Ohio State jerseys on and were like, you know, just wanting to, you know how it is. Yeah. But there were probably 15 to 20 guys that should have been there. But they take you through some runs and some 225s, and like I didn't know how to bench, and I didn't know how to start on a 40, and you know I still ran well and all that stuff. But then after they picked the walk-ons, they picked about 14 or 15 of us, and then we had to do walk-on workouts for 2 weeks without the team, and that was probably the hardest 2 weeks. Dude, I went to the Olympics and trained for months, and I will put those 2 weeks of walk-on workouts. Maybe I wasn't physically ready for it, but that was some of the hardest stuff I ever did. Doug Davis was a beast, by the way.
Now, do you think it was very hard because they was trying to break y'all down to see if y'all would quit?
100%. 100%. You know, Doug, remember
Yeah,
Doug?
oh yeah.
Rest in peace,
Yeah,
Doug.
that's the kind of stuff
Doug.
you rise up though,
But
too.
yeah,
right,
but
Nate?
well, I was like, you know, we'll get into that. Like, what's going to break you and not.
Yeah.
But no, we had these 2 weeks of workouts. I talk about that in the book a little bit. We had one of these workouts was we had to do walking lunges across the field and back, and we had 60 and 70-pound dumbbells. Like that's a lot.
Yeah.
And
I do a gang of lunges.
and you're walking across the field and back. And if anybody dropped a dumbbell, we had
Everybody
to start
over.
And so I would go and I would get about halfway. We had to start over. I got like 3/4 the way we had to start over. So I was like, kind of like called everybody like, oh, look, if you're gonna drop it, just sit it on your like knees and just wait till we're done. So me and this other kid, I think it was like Maxwell, remember, and Rourke, remember him?
Yeah.
We kind of got done with it, and then we would run out and like hold the dumbbells for guys, so we wouldn't have to like do it again.
Showing team leaders though.
But I'm like, I'm not doing this again. Like, that was hard. That was one of the hardest. That was hard. But they would do stuff like that for those 2 weeks, and it was every day, and it was like it was tough. And those 15 guys turned into 12, turned into 10, turned into 8 very, very quickly. And by the time we got to just spring ball, from that walk-on workout in January to the workouts to March, spring ball, like there were probably about 7 guys, 7 guys. And then once spring was done, by the time we went into the actual season, I'd say there were like four walk-ons that were in that walk-on tryout that were on the team. And by the time I was a senior and graduated, there were like 2 of us.
Damn. So for those first few weeks, did they not put you through any position drills? It was just straight up conditioning?
Pretty much. No,
seeing
it
if
was
they were
just try to break you.
Damn.
That was another question I was going to ask you, like, because obviously you play safety. Is that the position that you wanted to play, or was like, how did you know, like, what position you wanted to play? You know what I'm saying?
I mean, like at some point.
Because if you asked me,
you
probably should play running back.
Yeah, I would have, honestly, but I was a good tackler, you know? So, like, and at some point, you know, your body type just kind of puts you in that box.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I'm a running back safety. Like, I wasn't big enough to play linebacker. I probably wasn't small enough to play corner or fast enough at that level. And I didn't know anything about man-to-man coverage. Yeah. Like, to go very back to the beginning when I said it was the most humbling thing I ever did, like, you know, I didn't know the difference between cover 2 defense and man-to-man. Like, I had no idea. So I gravitated towards special teams because it was like, hey, go and just tackle him. And
tackle that guy.
Exactly. and I could do that. So
that makes sense.
That wasn't my vision was to be a special teamer, but like I needed to get on the bus. I needed to get on the field, and I needed to start making plays. And I only had really 2 years of eligibility. I walked on when I was done with my, it was my sophomore year. So I went into my junior year, was my first football season. Then I had to redshirt to get a third year of experience and time. But like that's all I had, so I had to make it count. So I gravitated towards special teams, but trying to learn football, it was humbling. I mean, there's a lot to it. It is not any other sport doesn't touch football. It is a chess match like you wouldn't believe. The personnels, the groupings, the situations, the down and distance, everything matters. It's a lot. So that couple years at Ohio State was a big learning experience for me, but I had to get on the field, so I didn't really spend a lot of time there. But to go back to you, yeah, I mean, I was either going to be a running back or I was going to be a safety, but I was good at tackling. So, and I played fullback in rugby, which is kind of deep, kind of like a safety. So I felt like that would transition the best for me, especially when you got guys like you playing running back. I don't know when they're going to put me in. So, yeah, I just kind of went to the safety room. But again, it's just the whole thing kind of got propelled through the special teams because it was like, I don't know what I'm doing. So just like, let me just run and tackle people. And that's what I did.
So was it the coaches that kind of told you what position to play, or was it something that you was just like?
I think I kind of knew I would be a safety. So a little bit of both, but like, I think the tackling really drove that. I wanted to play safety. But, Paul Haynes was my coach at the time, and he was big on like special teams because you remember like one of the coaches would coach one special teams group. And,
shout out to Coach Haynes.
Yeah, he's my guy. And he would, I fought hard to get his attention. I was like, I remember first year in there, I was like, Coach, like, you're going to help me. Like, like, I'm going to get you to help me. Because they've got their 5-star recruits. They've got their starters. They've got the young kids that they got to get better. They're not worried about a third-year walk-on who's never played football before. You know what I mean? It's just the reality of it. I'd say
when you look at it on paper,
yeah,
that's real.
That's true.
It was harder at Ohio State than it probably was in the NFL for me.
I'm sure.
Because they've got their pipeline through Glendale. Like in my mind, my senior year, I should have been starting at safety, but I'm biased. But those guys at from Glendale, that pipeline of guys, what's the coach going to say? Well, you got to walk on that. We're giving you 5-star recruits, and they're not playing because of the walk on. I think it was a little more political there than it was even in the league. But yeah,
definitely in the league.
Coach Haynes was really like, there's guys that play a decade in the league playing special teams. Like, you can make a career playing special teams. And, going back to how rooted I was in this whole journey was with my dad. Like, I want to make it to the NFL. Yeah. And I'm like, fuck it. This is the route I'm going to have to go, pivot and run the special teams route. And it worked for me.
When did you, same type of thing with the rugby when you was younger, like, when did you know, like, oh, I belong here? Because all of the things you just said, a lot of people probably maybe didn't think you belonged, but then you get out on the field and you're like, wait, like,
I mean, early on when we would first couple games and I'm running down on kickoff, just like blowing by everybody and making tackles, like I knew I could do it. But I would say the real moment I knew I could make it was my first senior year, not my redshirt senior year, but my first senior year. Eric Lichter would have all the guys that are training for pro day and go to the NFL come in and train, and he would let the guys that were still at Ohio State that had more eligibility left train with them. So I was training with like Dane and some of the other guys. I don't remember who they all were, but like they were training and we were doing L drills and 40s and stuff. And I'm like, yo, I can like run and jump with everybody. So I'm like, if athletically I'm very capable here, and if I can just get my foot in the door, like I know I can do this.
One opportunity.
That was kind of, for me, I'm like, these are the best guys at Ohio State going to the NFL at one of the, like you said earlier, one of the best universities for football in the country, that are all going to the NFL, and like I can run and jump.
And I'm here with these guys.
Yeah, I'm right. Like, and I'm not even training for this stuff. I'm just doing it. So that was kind of, for me, I'm like, oh, I can do this.
That's awesome.
So
I just remember, because obviously we did the pro day together.
Yeah.
And this dude just blew it away. Like,
Yeah, the stats I just read were pretty amazing.
blew it away. Like, even it's special for guys who don't get invited to the combine and have a great pro day and still get drafted. I mean, this
It's a
dude,
big deal.
my guy didn't play no high school football. What, 3 years? Ohio State. How many games did you like? Did you ever start any games?
Not at safety.
That's what I'm saying.
Played
Like,
3 snaps at safety at Ohio State.
never started a game at Ohio State.
unreal.
Got a sack though. Almost.
Yeah, I did
So-
read that. I didn't put that in the intro. My bad, Nate.
No, you good.
I almost did.
That's why I say he's just he different, man.
Yeah.
He's special.
Yeah, the pro day was really the icing on the cake for me. Because after I did that, I was like, there's no chance I'm not going to at least get on a team.
Yeah,
Because, like,
I belong.
if I had gone to if you look at all my numbers, if I had gone to the combine, I would have been first in every category, top 5 in my 40 in my position group. I would have been first in everything except the 40. I would have been like 4th, I think. And yeah, I mean, the best stuff was probably the L drill and the vertical was good and the broad jump was good. But like, I would say we did 225 was like the first thing you do. And then we do the vertical right after that. And, the 225 was good, but it's like, guys are strong, like, I was doing more, but it's like, it's bench press.
Yeah.
But then like we did the verticals and like I would say most guys were jumping in like low 30s.
Yeah.
And then like I went and like I just remember the scouts just being like, oh, and like after the vertical, they kind of were like following me around a little bit more.
You're on that 40 mark.
Hey,
People's like, who is this motherfucker?
Yeah, they were kind of like, well, let's watch this dude. Because like a lot of guys that went to the combine weren't doing stuff either. Like, you had already jumped. Maybe you don't want to jump again or whatever. But it just kind of like I had people watch me. And then I did my L drill. And the first one, like I absolutely like cleanest run I ever did. Like I was told I ran like a 6.27.
Yeah.
But they all looked at their watches and were like, there's no way. Like, he's got to do it again. And then the next one, I ran like a 6.46, which was like still like stupid fast. But
Basically, it was crispy
2:10,
as all
so
get out.
the
And they was like,
yeah, they were like, okay, this is so close to the first one. Hey, we're good. But yeah, the L drill was like the one too. Like, E-Lick got me right on that because I was like
Shout out to E-Lick,
flawless
too.
on the L drill. And I just, he took his coaching and, applied it and it was just super clean. But like, again, it goes back to the beginning. Like I cared so much about everything. Like I wasn't going to be like, well, we'll train a little bit and hopefully when the day comes, a lot of guys have this mindset that like when the day comes on pro day, I'm just going to, I'm going to rise up. Something's going to happen, like it's on competition day. Like, oh, I'm just going to find this strength that I've never had in training and something amazing is going to happen. It's like, nah, like you fall back on like your training. Like I would always think like if I have like the worst day I've had in training at my pro day, it's still going to be good enough,
Yes.
and like, that's kind of like how I thought. And so like my training every day was like, my standard needs to be here. It needs to be here. It needs to be here. And if my standard's there, like I can't lose. And then, I had a good day on top of it. And, that was the mindset. But I remember guys just being like, man, I can't believe I ran that. So it's like, well, man, in training, you were running the same thing. Why'd you think it was going to be different?
Right.
Like
would you say if my standards here, then it can't, because that's at the end of the day, like that expectation. And then if you have the day on top of it, because like you said, even if you shoot for this is what you want and it's here, it's still great, but you're giving yourself an opportunity to be great because of the prep time. And I think that's where people mess it up because like, you're not guaranteed that day's going to be that day where it's at crispy.
We gotta be
but what happens if it is?
Right. Oh, that too. But
You know what I mean?
you got to be real. Like I benched more in practice than I did that day.
Yeah.
You would think on anything I would do more on the day of the pro day, but I didn't. I was pissed I didn't get 40. I did 39 and a half on the vert. That hurt me. But like,
that half, bro.
I just,
Boy, jumping out the gym.
I know, that's crazy.
Those guys just think it's just going to happen. Life isn't like that. You need realistic expectations for yourself, and the work that you put in and what you've done is the only thing that can guide those expectations. If you think you've done this the whole time, but somehow the outcome's going to be here, you're fucking crazy.
Legitimately crazy. I've always thought that was a crazy understanding.
You're crazy. And I mean, you guys have a very similar experience with the powerlifting.
Yep.
Like, you know, hopefully you can find it the day of.
Yeah.
But if your standard in training has you at a place, you know you're there, you're cool. But you ain't going to do 150 pounds more than what you did in training just because it's the time to do it.
No. It's
Like,
more intense here on our basically practice days than it is on meet day.
Right.
And so
Exactly.
then if I have a chance to, you know, I have a good day, then yeah, watch out. And that's why I always say if I unrack it, I can squat it.
Right.
I believe it.
Right.
Let me
And
just get that bitch out the rack.
that goes to
I believe that 1,000,000%, boom.
Y'all just made a clip.
that goes to Bill Belichick's mindset on training and practicing. Like, he was like, if you can do this in practice, like, the games will be easier. And like, that's why we practiced so hard. Like, and we really did. But you know, if we can make it harder for you in practice, he would say that all the time. If we can make it harder for you in practice and it will be in the game, then you should be fine in the game.
Perform at a high
And
level. I love it. Man, there's
that's
some
kinda how
nuggets
that
all over this
transition-
place.
So I want to talk about the whole draft process. So you have the pro day. During that time, was Tressel, was there anyone on the staff who was like, we're trying as hard as we can to get you into the team? And then what were those conversations like whenever, you know, these teams are talking to you?
I mean, I don't know that they go out of their way to like boost a player, but like obviously like maybe the Patriots or some organizations ask about you, and you know, I was a pretty good dude, and Tress is always gonna say, you know, good things about you, and Tress is gonna say good things about everybody. But I would say if there was anybody, it was probably Mike Vrabel. My senior year, Mike was there, and you know, he was kind of in control of the kickoff team, and it was me and Ryan Shazier. And me and Ryan, my senior year, it was just like me and Ryan on every play. You know, if you don't take care of us too, like there's no shot. And Vrabel kind of saw that level that we were playing at, and obviously look at the type of player Ryan Shazier was.
Yeah.
And he knew like me and Ryan were the guys, and you know, I think, you know, Coach Vrabel helped me get an agent, and he obviously had the tie with the Patriots. I don't know if he ever said anything. I don't know if like having my agent help me. I don't know if it was my pro day. I think it was probably a culmination of all the things. You know, and then it just kind of came to life. But I think Vrabes really helped me. He saw what type of dude I was, how serious I was, and you know, I have to say, if there was any coach out there that kind of like had checked this guy out, it was probably Vrabes.
He understands the expectation up there too, and he knew the way you operated.
Yeah.
Which
The
probably makes
Patriots
sense.
way.
Yeah.
I think it's very clear when you've been at the level. Like, we didn't see it when we were at Ohio State, but when you've been in the league for a while and then you come back and you kind of see how people operate, you can see the ones that are going to make it and not. And I think Vrabes could very clearly see, like, he's a dude that could play.
I think that's one thing that a lot of people miss, is that the way that people operate to people who understand what's necessary stands out really easy.
It did.
And it does.
It does to
And
me when I go back, because I go back there all the time, and I can see clear as day, like the Marvin Harrison, the dude's just different, and he operates different. And like, there's a couple guys in there that go after it like that. Not only is he gifted the way he's gifted, but he handles everything that way. And it's like,
on top
like
of that,
no, it's not a surprise.
Yeah.
You know, it's very clear.
So I mean, the reality is too, like when you perform like that at pro day, to your point, you weren't really surprised. You were happy.
No, I was
like,
happy everybody got to see it. I was happy,
there
you
you
know,
go.
He knew what he had. In
That's
him.
what I'm saying.
I knew what I had in me. I knew what I was capable of. And I'm glad, like, I had a day where it was just kind of like all eyes on you and do your thing. And like, and I did it. And it was like, you know, all the work paid off. You know, setting that standard higher and higher over all those years. You know, when I first did the walk-on trout, I think I benched like, you know, 14 times at 225. 3 years later, I'm doing like 23, 24, you know, at like 203, I think I weighed in at. So like, there's a lot of work that went into that. It didn't just happen one day, you know, like those walk-on workouts, grinding through that, like those 6 a.m.s trying to like whoop everybody's ass, like not just trying to survive, like you stack days and you stack them and you stack them and you stack them. And then, you know, 3 years later, like you're just a different human being.
Hell yeah.
You know what I mean? I walked on that first year, and then the next summer they had these college sevens tournaments, and like Coach Tress let me play in it. And that first year, my body didn't really change quite as much, but like I have like this highlight video or whatever, and it's just of the sevens tournaments of 2 years of that sevens tournament, and like you can see 1 year is like after 3 years of playing football at Ohio State, and one is after 1 year, and I just physically look different. You know what I mean? And you know, you change yourself, you change your mindset, you change, you know, what you think hard work is. You know, I thought I was a hard worker, and then I went to New England, and then and that got tested, and just eventually, you know, you are, and Coach Tress kind of talked about this, like you are what you do on a consistent basis. You're not these glimpses of these moments. You know, when you're a piece of shit or you have a low moment in life, that's not who you are. But when you have your greatest moment in life and something, it all seems to work out for you, that's not necessarily you either. You are what you do on a consistent basis, day in and day out. And when you do it time and time and you keep setting that bar higher and higher, your standard raises, and then over time you change. And that's kind of what happened.
Oh, you're dropping some knowledge. Motherfuckers better be taking some notes. All right, first question. Tyler.
Yeah, so I want to fast forward just a little bit to your first year in the NFL, where you are second on the team in snaps and tackles on the special teams, right? Mm-hmm. And that's in 2014?
2012.
2012. And you just tried out for a football team in 2009 with never playing football before. Yeah. So the first 3 years that happens, and then 2014 was when, you know, the Patriots make this crazy comeback. I think it was the biggest comeback in Patriots history. It was like a 24-point comeback, but you're playing the Broncos. Muffed punt, you recover it, you set up the game-winning field goal, right?
Yeah, I remember that.
5 years before that, you never played football besides Pee Wee.
So maybe seventh grade, which I played in seventh grade. I remember, but
so you're talking about stacking up days, which like the power of consistency. But dude, there had to be a switch that you just became a killer. Like, you don't go from not playing football to making game-winning, comeback, historic plays.
When you put it like that, it sounds cool. You know, it's funny, like when they interviewed me after the game, they were like, what were you thinking? I'm like, man, like honestly, like I was just doing my job. Like it was a punt play. I remember it. I called the protection. I knew what I was going to get. I got out as quickly as possible. I covered down. You know, I came in fundamentally with my lead foot in front. I started to shuffle. I saw the dude was about to make the catch. It was Wes Welker at the time. He drops it, and I was just doing those fundamental things to the best of my ability to put myself in that position. It wasn't anything, you know, and then it came to me. I think that's how big plays happen, is you're just so consistent in the fundamentals that when it comes to you, you can take advantage of it. When you're inconsistent in your fundamentals and then those glimpses open up for you, if you're not consistent in the fundamentals, it might put you out of position to make the plays when they have the opportunity to come to you. And I'd say that whole thing is just kind of that came to me in that moment, but that senior or that rookie year was a big growing point for me with football. I mean, I learned more in that rookie year of football than, you know, I was like, I made it. I'm here now. Let's take advantage of it. And I learned more about football. And it wasn't like college where they're like, you know, we've got 100 guys on the roster and you'll run on kickoff and like that's it. Like we got 46 guys active during the game. Like I'm going to have to play safety. Like I played more safety in the first game of my NFL career than I did my entire time being at Ohio State. Like I played a lot of safety my rookie year, and you know, if I didn't put the work in to really know what was going on, like, you know, yeah, you're a good special teams player, but we can't count on you to, like, when Devin or Pat goes out because something happens, which they will, like, you got to go in and we can't drop off. And that was a huge part about, like, my value that I wanted was like, yeah, I'm going to be one of the best or the best special teams player you have. But as soon as something happens, like I'm going to go in there and
count on me there.
You can count on me. Yeah, I'll start shit. Like I thought, you know, I was a good safety by the time by the time I was in the league for 3 or 4 years, like I was good at that. Like I was already kind of a special teams guy, but I had that value. And ultimately that rookie year was just big on growing. And I had one of the best special teams players ever to play the game in Matthew Slater, who's going to be a Hall of Famer, I hope. And, you know, I'm chasing this dude, you know, and he's leading the league in special teams tackles, like 8-9 Pro Bowls. I mean, and I was competing with him. So, and I wanted to be the dude. So there was like that hunger in there to like compete. And, you know, it kind of came out over the years.
I love the answer because it's exactly what I already knew he was going to say, because it's like fundamentals gives you the best opportunity, the consistency. So when the time is there, you get a chance to be great. On that day, it all lined up to be great.
Exactly.
And that right there is what I think a lot of people miss. So I'm glad. It was a great question, great answer.
But
So
talk
good.
about the position that you were playing when you made that play. A lot of people don't know
Personal
how.
protector,
yeah,
the PP?
Yeah. Because
Yeah,
that's the
lot.
quarterback of.
Yeah, because he's
Right.
saying he was calling the deep. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna get me going on that.
That's why I want you to talk about it.
It's the quarterback of the special teams, basically, right?
Yeah,
the
and the punt team.
punt team.
Punt team, yeah.
But like that's kind of like to allude to that. Like Matt, I always talk about Matt Slater because like, I mean, we made each other's. Well, he made my career. I'd like to think we were kind of Batman and Robin. He was definitely Batman. I was Robin. But like, he was a very spiritual guy. Next to Jim Tressel, Matt Slater is probably the highest character person I've ever met. But he was that. Give us a speech and make everybody put his arm around you and like talk about spirit. Where I'm like yo, like you need to keep your eyes on number 2. Like I'm like very much the coach. So, and he was the spiritual guy, and that's kind of like how we grew. Was like I was kind of the play caller, I was like the analytical one, and to your point, like the thing that's awesome about Bill Belichick was he like, I think this is we can talk about culture, but you got a guy like Tom Brady who's running the offense, and he's like, this is the expectation and this is the standard, and if I can't trust you, like. I'm not going to throw you the ball and we're not going to put you on the field. And it has nothing to do with Bill. And it has nothing to do with, if Tom doesn't trust you, you ain't getting the ball, right? That's the bottom line. And you talk about the defense, you got Dante Hightower and Devin McCourty. It's like if Devin's out there and he doesn't trust the corner to understand the call that we're making, we got to rotate the defense. It's like he's going to voice that to someone. Because we're not going to go out there. It's like this isn't about friends. It's about being the most efficient, best team that we can be. And if we don't trust you, like that's the bottom line. And to my point, to your point, is like Bill gave me that with the special teams. And after a couple years, like I really had ownership of like, it got to the point where I would just run the punt meetings, and I would talk about it, and I would tell guys what they need to do, and coaches would ask me, what do you think about this guy, and they kind of gave me that, and that really grew for us. I mean, I can pat my own back here. Like we gave up like 1 block punt in like 8 years with the Patriots, maybe 2. Might have been 2 actually. It was one Ninkovich and the other one was against Philly. And then like the year I left, they gave up 3 in 1 season. So like I feel good about what we had, and there was a reason it worked.
Yeah.
But to his point, there's a lot going on at PP. There's, they can bring an 8-man box where we got to fully protect. They can bring a corner roll where we got 9. I got to bring a gunner in. Maybe we don't. We have, fake punt plays. If they do bring a corner roll, we can check it depending on the down and distance there, or the distance of the 4th down. And there's situations where there's a 6-man box. They're going out the vice of the Matt Slaters, and there's only 6 in the box, and it's not really a rush threat. And in that scenario, I think if I recall, it was a 6 or 7-man box, that 2013 Denver game. And that guy, Matt was viced, and I had a single on one side. I have a 7-man box, but he's kind of a stack player. So I know right now I'm not blocking anybody. So I'm getting out.
Yep.
So as soon as that ball snapped, I check, make sure everybody's like kind of cool, and then I'm pieced out, and I kind of already have an idea of who's going to block me, and then I can just run at him, stack him, get rid of him, whatever you got to do, and to get myself in that position. But there's a lot going on with checks and protections and all that stuff. But ultimately, Bill gave me that ownership, and I felt like it was my responsibility. Like if we gave up a block punt, it wasn't me. Like I still felt responsible.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of guys have that accountability on the units. Like some PPs are like, oh man, well the wing just didn't block him. It's like, well, did you do everything you could as a play caller to put him in the best situation to handle that? So I mean, we took it that way, and we were good for a long
I know
time.
why Bill just let you do it.
I'm just
the
thinking
way
about
you-
it, man. I'm just thinking about the whole thing, because you go back to, you can ask Tress right now, what's the most important play in football? And what he gonna say?
Punt.
Punt.
Yep.
You think about that, and then you think about this. How special I know this dude is, because it's like Tress always told us that punt was the most important play in football. But then you go from playing for Ohio State, and you go playing for the Patriots and Bill. and he makes this guy the personal protector, which is for people that don't know about the personal protector, that's like a big deal. Like you get most of the guys who are probably like the captain, which is you were a captain of special teams.
Slate.
Well,
I'm Robin.
Yeah. But that's like it's like a huge deal. Oh, it's a huge deal.
Yeah.
So that's big time, bro.
To your point, there's a statistic that if you give up a blocked punt in a game, the chances of losing are like in the high 90 percentile.
Yeah, I believe that.
So it's like if you give up a blocked punt, like you almost like have lost the game. Like that's how important it is not to give one up. And special teams coaches around the league will try to dumb it down and make it easy and simplify it for people. But like we kind of went the other route and allowed me to kind of like really see it so I could put us in the best situation when the time came, rather than just kind of, you can make it simple, but then on the other end, on punt return or punt block, whatever you want to call it, you take advantage of people who make it simple.
Man, what?
Yeah.
All types of tricks.
All types of stuff. If you want to be a simple team, we got something for that.
Yeah, there ain't nothing simple about the Patriots at that point. So
no,
that makes sense.
That was good.
Sea Liver.
This is probably my favorite question for the players that come through. So you spent time both obviously at Ohio State and in the pros. So in no particular order, maybe give us your top 3 or top 5 with both college and professional venues that were your favorite, no matter if it's the aesthetics, the atmosphere.
Favorite venue. That's tough, man. Well, I played in the East, so the AFC East. So I'm playing a lot up in the Northeast. I loved playing in Buffalo. Like rowdy fans, they had good turf. I hated playing in Cincinnati.
Oh,
Cincinnati's turf felt like just concrete with carpet on top.
It probably was back then.
Hold on. Have you ever played in Detroit?
Yeah, Detroit was
worse.
bad too. Detroit was like weird. Like it had divots in it for me. But
Man, you playing on
Detroit was
this
bad.
right
Detroit
here.
was second. Detroit was second worst.
Or also
For me.
for him, rugby venues, like where you played at,
Oh,
because
yeah,
you
that's
also
true.
played around
That's
the
what I was
world.
gonna
So
ask.
that's
Nice segue.
another little wild card to
Yeah.
your question.
Nice segue.
I lean towards Buffalo because of the atmosphere. Kansas City, we played a lot of AFC championships there, and like those were rowdy when we were there. Denver, same thing. We had those rivalries with Denver and Kansas City. Denver, Kansas City, Buffalo. I always thought Seattle was really cool because like the way they built that stadium, it was always just so damn loud.
Yeah.
And it was just because of the way they built it.
Yeah.
I think my favorite, if I had to pick a place to play, it would probably be Houston. Once they made it an indoor, nicest turf, soft, flat, like good stadium. On that, the new LA, the SoFi Stadium's nice. But my favorite's probably Houston now. But back in the day when we were there younger, they had like these carts that they'd slide in. The roof was open, like the worst field in the league. And now I'd say it's probably my favorite. Rugby, we didn't. I played in some places in Wales that was really cool, but you guys wouldn't know it. And playing in the Olympics was cool, but that was, rugby's a more intimate sport. It's almost, we go into these stadiums with 60, 70, whatever, plus thousands of people. Like you don't see faces really. Like you're just kind of like, you hear the noise and whatnot, like at least for me. And we practice so much that you're so worried about the practice tape and the eye in the sky, the film. You're not really worried about the fans like that. But like when I would play rugby, it was like, you can look a fan in the eye. Like when he's talking shit, like you can see him right there. Like it's, you're talking 5,000 to 10,000 people. So it's a lot more intimate. But it's cool because of that. Just unique. But
What about at Ohio State? Like what college venue?
good question. Outside of Ohio State, I would say.
The shoes, obviously. Unreal.
I liked Wisconsin. Honestly,
Everyone picks Wisconsin.
I would say Penn State, but again, Penn State was just like big and like the fans felt really far away, but God, it just felt enormous. Yeah. But I would probably go to Wisconsin. Iowa's actually really cool too, with the hospital right there, and like the fans are like right on the field. Like Iowa was really cool.
I like Iowa too because you get to wave at the kids, the hospital kids.
Yeah.
But I hated Their locker room. Remember their locker room?
Yeah, it was pink.
We need to find some clips of that online because
Whole locker
multiple
room
people
pink.
have mentioned that. That's funny.
Air conditioned, super cold too.
Right.
I remember. I was
They
like,
just trying to
what?
mess with you.
Trying to get you
Oh,
nice and
yeah.
comfortable. Like,
Yeah.
you know.
So good.
Purdue's was the worst, though.
Oh, by
I
far.
thought I was in a high school. Like,
Hey, we have a great place here, but this was the locker room.
At Purdue,
Yes.
for 100 guys or whatever,
Literally.
like 70 guys, where we were standing on top of each other.
Yeah. This is
Like,
like literally.
You'd almost be like, all right.
So
you
this the
you
training
put your
room
stuff
right
on, then
here?
I'll put my stuff on.
Yeah.
'Cause it was so
terrible.
tight.
It was
Yeah,
terrible.
it was awful.
Trevon.
So you obviously had like the opportunity to play with like a bunch of high level athletes and everything. So like who were some athletes that you were around that when you noticed like how they moved and everything, like you were like, that's definitely different. Like I kind of want to replicate that and kind of put that into like my kind of like, you know, like style and everything.
Oh, good question. You know, when you first asked that, I was thinking about like who were some special athletes that are like special, because there's some athletes that just, you know, when you go to Ohio State, you see some of the best guys around, but like when you go to the league, it's just another level. And I saw a handful. I played in the league for 10 years and saw thousands of teammates and through Ohio State and stuff. And I got like three to five guys that are just like make me think about life differently because they're so special. You know, Jamie Collins was one of those. I don't know if you remember him.
I tell people all the time, still to this day, he's the best linebacker I ever played against.
He was the most athletic human I've ever seen. Like
He didn't get enough attention,
Where'd he
enough
play?
praise. He played for the Patriots.
he didn't,
yeah.
I don't think he had the urgency because he was so much more athletic than everyone else.
Yeah.
Like Dante Hightower was a way better football player in my opinion. Like Jamie's really good, but like Dante just like he wasn't that as athletic. I mean Dante's super athletic too, but like Dante was just everything. Like big, fast, smart football player. Like Luke Kuechly. Those guys just play the game at a different speed because their mind is there. Like Jamie just like I remember we had to do this squat test and like we did tendo squat, speed squat, right?
yeah.
And I think like I don't remember what the number was. I want to say like 0.5 or 0.6, and like I couldn't even do like 315 with it, and I was like pissed, you know. And I'm like a try hard guy, you know, and I couldn't do it.
I'm a try-hard guy.
Jamie told the strength coach, if I can do 455 and hit the tendo, like I don't have to squat the rest of the year. And no warm up, no belt, no shoes on. And this dude makes it like a 0.8, not even close, just destroys it. And I'm just like, I'm sitting there like, yo, like I'm over here trying as hard as I can't even really do 315. And this dude's got 455 on the bar like a joke, bro. And he'd go out before practice when we'd have walkthroughs and just do like 20 back handsprings without stopping. And he's 260 something.
Bruh.
Like
So
he
I
was
say-
just
question
he
that
just-
you're an athlete.
Well, it just
Hey.
makes me think about like life on a spectrum. Like obviously, like people are born on one end where like they can't walk and they have every disease and like
Yeah.
they're born in a wheelchair and like just like everything against them. And then there's like, you know, higher end athletes, which we're probably up there. And then there's, you know, the majority of us in the middle and we're probably on the other end. But then there's just to the opposite of that. There's
Jamie.
Then there's Jamie Collins. Then there's these people that I don't care like what he eats. Or whether he like when he would lift weight, I don't like lifting weights. It doesn't make me stronger. I just get sore. Which I think his genes genuinely would max.
That's hilarious.
Would max him out.
Yeah.
I don't think lifting weights necessarily did more for him. Like his genes maxed him out. Like I don't know what else to say because he would do stuff. I've been in pro sports like my whole life, and then you're standing out that much to me, like you're that special. And the other guy I think about is Brandon Bolden. I don't know if you remember him, but that dude was 220, lowest body fat on the
He's still in
team.
the league.
Yeah, he'd run 4.4, but I mean 220, like, and you have any Kaiser machines here?
I had Kaiser.
So he had Kaiser, and we had to do like, if you got to like off with 400 pounds, if you could get to 4,000 10 times,
Yeah.
that was like really good. That was elite. You know, I think I did it like twice in my life. Like this dude made the thing go like 65, 7,000, like just first rep, no warm up, boom, go. And just crazy recruitment, just like it doesn't make sense to me. And he was the biggest pencil whipper, like he wouldn't lift, same thing.
Pencil whipper. That's a new. I never heard that one before. for?
Because we had to fill out our workouts. You know what I mean? I call him,
The biggest pencil whipper.
he would just sit there, he'd write his workout down. He said, I think I did this today. I think I did this. And then he'd go about his day, eating pancakes. It doesn't matter, dude. Lowest body fat on the team. So there's some special guys that I think about when you ask that question that I'm just like, you know, you see some rare human beings here. But like what I want to implement my game like, you know, I don't know. I kind of was, because I was playing special teams, but I was also playing safety. Like, you know, Pat Chung was really good. He was like fast, but he was like really strong, but he could like cover too. You know, Devin McCourty was a little lighter. Me and Pat were kind of the same, but like Devin McCourty was like 180, 90 pounds, but he was like really fast. But like I needed the strength to be covering linebackers and like, you know, like I'm, you know, Devin's out there covering wide receivers and just trying to chop tackle people. Like I'm in a hold up with a, you know, a defensive end. Like I can't get walked back, you know? So I kind of have my own kind of thoughts on what I wanted to be. I wanted to be like, if you're faster than me, then I'm definitely stronger than you. And if you're stronger than me, then I'm faster than you. Like I wanted an upper hand, and like I always wanted to be like, and I'm definitely going to be smarter and think this game better than you. So like I needed something that I could lean on versus anybody that I would see. And that's kind of, you know, when you look at some of those players, that's kind of like those attributes that they have. Like Pat, really strong for his size, but like also fast. So if he got his hands on a little guy, he could kind of control him. But if it's a big guy, he could use his wiggle. And, you know, ultimately the best example is a Julian Edelman or a Tom Brady, like really hard working guy that's just like no quit in you. And just like, if I practice like this every day and get better mentally, and then I have this like dog in me as well, like you're just gonna be hard to beat. Like you're just gonna be somebody that's like you don't really want to come across, because like obviously they know what the hell they're doing, and like when you watch them play, like they're gonna make you, like you're gonna have to die for this shit. If you want to beat me, like we're gonna die. One of us is gonna die. I'm willing to die. Like I'm gonna go as hard as I possibly can, and like I want you to know that that's where we're gonna have to go here, or you're just gonna have to give in, and I'm gonna win the rep. Like that's just kind of the mindset.
That's good.
I love it. Back to you, Boom.
You kind of talk about Tom Brady. How was it, you know, playing with a guy like that? How was he in the locker room? Like, just kind of speak on him a little bit.
I have nothing but great things to say about him. I mean, other than the fact that he went to Michigan. But he's like, you know, you hear about prima donna guys around the league, and like they think they've arrived, or maybe they have, and they just like you can't even talk to them. Like Tom was not like that. Like Tom knew everybody's name, whether you were an undrafted free agent, 10-year guy. He treated everybody the same. He was a great dude. But ultimately, you got this culture in New England that Bill Belichick's trying to establish. But it's one thing, like, you know, I went to New York the last 2 years, and you got Joe Judge trying to preach this culture to these guys, but it's like, you know, what are the players that are walking it out, carrying it out? So it's like hard to buy in, right? You got Bill saying this is how we do things. Well, first, Bill works really hard. But then he's got a guy like Tom Brady, who is the GOAT, and still comes in. He's in the building before everybody else. And then when it's like I'm not throwing today. Like, you know, quarterbacks have that. I'm not throwing today. Like Tom, that was never
He's in it, huh?
He was always out there at practice before everybody, throwing through every rep, like extremely hard worker, not athletic at all.
Yeah.
But what he was capable of is a testament to his work, because he's not athletic like at all, but like dude could throw the rock. He had the nicest form, softest ball to catch. Like he thought the game at such a you know, he was so far ahead of everyone else. And all that is a testament to his work. Those things don't just come to you. It's not Jamie doing back handsprings on the field, and just it doesn't matter who you put in front of me. I'm 260. I'm either going to manhandle you, and if you're a fast dude, I can still run 4.4, 4.5 at 260. Like that's not Tom. Tom's everything Tom has is because of his work ethic. I couldn't have more respect and for that guy. I mean, and he walked that every single day. And you got a guy like Bill trying to drive it home, and then you got a guy like Tom doing it. It's easy for a guy like me coming in as a rookie saying,
this is how we do it.
This is the expectation, and then this is the best player of all time doing it. Well, it's easy for me. I just need to go follow their lead. Like, I don't have to find some answer. You know, I think a lot of young guys don't have that leadership to look up to, or they don't buy in or whatever. But, like, it was easy to come come into New England. They've established themselves. They're obviously a good team, won a lot. Like, and Bill made it easy. Like, this is the formula. Come in. Like, he had these things on the door. Work hard, do your job, put the team first, and be attentive. Those were the 4 things on the door. And I remember it like that vividly because it was that important that it was talked about every day. Be attentive, do your job, put the team first, and work hard. Like, if you can do those things, you'll be fine. Yeah. And you got a guy like Tom walking it out, it was easy.
When you saw that, Nate, were you like, oh, yeah, this is me? Like, to you, it probably made a ton of, right? Because that's already how you vibe. Where some other guys probably rolling and go, oh, this ain't for me.
Right. No, that happens a lot.
I'm sure you saw it both.
It happens all the time. I mean, you hear a lot of people have a lot of bad things to say about New England, but they're tripping. In my opinion, they just aren't hard workers, and it's okay. Or they're too much of a me guy. You got to put the team first. Yeah. It's not about you. Like, it was hard for a lot of guys. Like, when you realize we're building something special with the dynasty, winning games. Like, and if it's not about you, like, are you cool with that?
Yeah.
A lot of guys
weren't. It's about the ring.
Yeah, it's about the ring, exactly. And those, you could see very clearly the guys that wanted to and didn't want to. But it's funny you asked that because, like, when I first got there to New England, got drafted, I show up, the 6 of us that got drafted, and Bill kind of got me one-on-one. He's like, you know, how you doing? I'm like, I'm awesome. I'm excited to be here, right? Like, I'm fucking juiced. I'm like, here. And he goes like, well, you're ready to work, right? And I'm like, yeah, like, duh.
You know, of course. You just drafted me.
But then, like, I start to see that play out over the years. Yeah. And a lot of guys are just excited to be there, but they don't realize the work. And that totally makes sense to me now that Bill said that to me, because there were so many guys that just were like, they thought they arrived, but then they didn't realize, like, the amount of work that we actually did. Yeah. And whatever I thought being a hard worker in the junkyard, that was challenged at Ohio State, you know, and then whatever I thought being at Ohio State, being a hard worker there, was challenged again by Bill. And, you know, you do what's required of you if you're about it. You know, you answer the call. And for me, it was, you know, we talked about this earlier, what's going to break you. And for me, you know, I always ask myself in those moments when we're doing competitions with, you know, whether it be the walk-on workouts or, like, last man standing stuff, like, in that moment, it's just like, is this the moment where I'm going to break? Like, that's the personal question I would ask myself. Like, is this, you know, with Bill, is this too much work and I just can't do it anymore? Is this the moment where I've just had enough? And the answer is just always no.
It's always no.
Just go a little further. And when the answer is always no, you end up, you know, a lot further along than you thought you would. A few rings
out. Yeah, so you talk about winning rings. Take us through what's it like, because not only do you win the Super Bowl once, you got 3 of them. How many did you play in?
Played in 3. We played in one. We had one more versus the Eagles, and I tore my ACL that year, so I didn't play in it. So I'm undefeated.
So yeah, take us through, like, your first Super Bowl. What was that like? What was that entire week like?
That was the first one was gnarly because you're just like, eyes are big and you're like, whoa, the media is crazy, and, like, you know, it's just the only 2 teams left. They're watching you, and you're out there for, you know, 2 weeks before the game. So, you know, you got a week of practice and everybody, you know, it's just a lot of distraction. But Bill did a really good job of, like, keeping that tied in. But yeah, I mean, that first one was super just, like, eye-opening, special. And it's crazy because, like, you've played some playoff football. Like, the difference between, like, preseason and regular season, like, definitely goes up a notch. And then if you get lucky enough to play in the playoffs, like, playoff football is just, like, it definitely goes up a notch. But then when you get to, like, the AFC Championship and you talk about the Super Bowl, like, nobody's making mistakes. Like, mistakes, like, and just the speed and precision of everything, like, it's top-notch stuff. You see mistakes and those teams lose. Like, it's just how it goes. So, it was.
What was the locker room like right before the game? Was everyone just dead silent? What was it like?
I mean, not really, because you got a guy like Tom that's been there and done it. You got guys like Vince Wilfork who've been there and done it that first time, and it's like, you know, boys were like, we got to go out and play a game. This is like, don't let this moment become a bigger thing than a football game, because that's ultimately what we're here to do, and we're good at that. So lean into what we're about to do. And after that first one, that new group of guys. Like there was that 2000 to 2011 group, and then there was the 2012 to 2019 or 20 group, and I was part of that second group. So once we all got that kind of that first one under our belt, that second one, we all kind of had been there before, so it was a little different. But they were all different, all great experiences. If I had to pick a favorite, it probably would have been the comeback against Atlanta in Houston.
That was great.
It was crazy.
Just you want to talk about the locker room there, like no panic. Everybody kind of knew, like, hey, some things haven't gone our way. We should have scored once. We didn't throw a pick six. We gave up a big play on defense. Like, this is really not the game that the score is indicating. And, like, we all kind of, like, really genuinely, like, to our core knew like, no, we're going to be good, and these dudes are going to have to deal with us. And then, like, it started to turn in the second half, and, like, we could kind of feel it. And it was just like so that sick arm wrestling moment where you're just like I got you right now. Over the top for sure, bro. And I got you, and, like, we see you guys realizing it, and there's nothing you can do about it. It, like, really felt like that.
You imposed your will, and they just didn't have it back.
It was too much. That one was awesome. That was super cool. That kind of entailed the full team, offense, defense, special teams. Like, there were a lot of big plays in that. That one was super cool. So
I was thinking about, as you were talking, like, coached by your dad, obviously first, then on to Tressel, and then on to Bill Belichick. I mean, you're talking about.
I was thinking about that too.
Nate.
Yeah,
it's lucky. Like
very lucky, very blessed.
I mean, unbelievable to have men like that have led you.
Yeah.
To
I mean, how many people come into a situation where they have no control of the person that's leading them or coaching them, and they just have to go with it? I mean, what a detriment that could be to your career, right? I mean,
1,000%.
Very fortunate. I like to think, I went to the Patriots because of the type of person I was, because they knew I would fit. And but again, like, I came to Ohio State because I grew up in Columbus. Like, it could have it could have been, it might not have been Jim Tressel. It could have been someone else. But you're at a university like Ohio State, and you get the best. And I was, that's why I went to Ohio State. I thought about going to a D3 school and playing more safety and trying to get more film, but, like, Ohio State has that power because it is Ohio State, and the same thing goes with the coaches that come through there. They're the best. And the one I'm luckiest about was my dad. How fortunate was I to have, there's just so many scenarios where people are, you can't pick it. The dad doesn't want to be involved. They don't have the experience or the drive or the will to, like, put that type of energy into their kid. I talk about, my dad spelled love, Time, time, and, like, that type of time he put in with me. Some dads got to go work all day. We worked at the yard, so we were together. He could leave whenever he wanted. It was his business. I mean, like, how lucky was I, again, like I said earlier, to have that type of father figure to kind of drive me and really fulfill my potential. And again, like, a lot of it was out of my hands. I was extremely fortunate, and just comes back to, taking advantage of the opportunities that you're faced with.
A couple more things around Belichick I think would be valuable for people. Like, talk about just the basic four, but what a couple things come to mind whenever you just think about the way he led, the way he operated, just anything that people can take away?
I think he walked the walk.
Yep.
He walked his talk, actually, is what I want to say. He walked his talk. Like, he talked a lot about hard work, putting the team first, all these things. Like, but, like, the guy was in there before everybody. And he knew everything about every position. Like, it's not like some of these coaches are just like, I'm an offensive coordinator, and, like, the defensive, like, Bill was just as much involved in, like, the offense as he was. And he obviously is a defensive coach, but, like, he knew everything that we were doing, every aspect of the game plan. Like, he took this strategy, which was his role in the games, to the most importance, like the pinnacle level of, like, knowing everything that we're about to go into this combat, and I need to know every aspect of what we're doing so that I can streamline adjust if I need to in the middle of the game. And that even goes into special teams. Like, he knew every single thing that we were doing, and after my time, I didn't have a lot of experience with a bunch of coaches, thankfully, but, like, you see around the league, like, some of these coaches just aren't that in tune with their team. And I think that is probably one of the biggest things that I could say about him was extremely hard worker. And, he demanded a lot from his guys, but at the same time, he gave that too. It wasn't like all just lip service where he was telling us to work hard and like he would go chill out. Like, nah, he was like, I'm demanding it of you because I demanded it myself, and that's just the culture we have here. And if it's not for you, it's all good. But he walked that talk, and a brilliant football mind, super attentive to detail, like hyper focused person. Mm-hmm. A little weird when you get away from football.
Yeah, I'm sure.
What I mean? But I love him. He's been great to me, and ever since I've been away from the Patriots, he's just been, awesome for me. Like whenever I want to come, him and Mr. Kraft are just the best. The support he showed when I went to the Olympics, that conversation,
They had to carve something out for you, right?
Well, I was like, hey, I want to, we need to sign another contract. We got that done. And I'm like, well, hey, like, rugby's in the Olympics. Like, this is something I feel like I got to do. And he was like, right away, he was like, no, go for it. Let's go ahead.
Sick.
He said, and like, I talked about this before, but like he called me back the next day and was like, hey, we got to put something in your contract. It's not like you're going sailing. That's what he said to me. But he just super supportive in that, understood who I was, understood my dad, understood what that meant to me. And, from my relationship with him, I can't say enough about him. He would say, we as coaches can't expect more for you than you expect for yourself. And I think that one hits hard because it's like he's sitting there expecting so much out of you because he believes that he can get it. So like I need to match that and exceed that at least because it's me. Yeah. And you see a lot of times these coaches want so much for these guys, but they just don't have the same belief in themselves. Mm-hmm. And Bill did. If you were in that building, he believed in you for sure. He really did. And just ultimate dude.
There's just so many reasons why it's been a winning culture for so long. It's like you got to spell out a lot of them that I'm not surprised by any of it. And it's probably not happening in very many other locker rooms that's consistent. So it makes sense of why they've been able to build what they build. Yep. But the walk and the expectation from the top down is so huge because the lip service, the guys can read through that shit. Mm-hmm. So like they're not going to subscribe to that if it ain't happening. But if you're like every time I come to the facility, it's Bill and Tom. Yeah. It's Bill and Tom. Like
right. Or you're in a meeting and you don't even realize Bill's in the back. And then you think you're just chilling and you're kind of spacing out. And then he calls out a specific technique that you're using with a certain defensive call that we're making and why you need to do it. You're just like, yo, this dude is just locked in at all times. Yeah. And when we go back to the beginning, when someone can do that every day for years and they're always that way, that's just who they are. And that's who he was.
So good. Boom.
Can Bill win another one without Tom?
You're going to ask me that. I don't know, man. I think, I kind of alluded to there was that first 2000s to like 2010 group and then the 2011 to 2020 group. And like, those veterans are a huge reason why teams are good. I think we had a nice changing of the guard in that 2011-12 year where it was a smooth transition. And obviously there was one similarity between those 20 years, and that was Tom Brady. And, that made that transition smooth. I think they're kind of in that again right now, right? Like the only guy that's left is Matt Slater, and I don't know why he's still there. He needs to stop playing, but he's there. And
what year is this for him?
15 if he plays this year. I think it'll be 15. Wow. Absolute dog. I don't know how his knees still work.
Hey, a dog.
But anyways, outside of that, like there's not a single similar face. Mm-hmm. So he's trying to rebuild that whole culture and all those things that we've been talking about this whole time. Can he do that? I think he probably can. They can probably put a good defense together and all that stuff. But this league is an offensive-driven league, and those quarterbacks get paid hundreds of millions of dollars because they genuinely are the difference makers in this game. I mean, they are. It's clear as day. Look at the good ones and look at the bad ones and look how good the good teams are and look how good the bad teams are. Like, there's not bad teams with, like, elite-level quarterbacks. Like, unless just, like, everybody got hurt and they have no one to protect him. But, like, it's just the way it goes. I don't.
You can't.
I'm gonna lean towards probably like right now. No, I don't know that. Like Mac Jones is not on that level.
Right.
You know what I mean? In my
they're trying to get
opinion,
rid of him.
in my opinion, I don't have a lot of good things to say about him, so I'm just gonna leave that there. So yeah, right now, I mean, it's tough. I think Bill's trying to go for the all-time winningest coach.
Yeah.
So he needs like 2 or 3 more seasons of 10 wins, something like that. He'd be there.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the aim is. Another Super Bowl though, I don't think I see it. I think the AFC East is looking beefy too,
Loaded,
with Buffalo right now, and Miami's kind of coming out of nowhere, and who knows what the Jets will end up doing, but like Buffalo's like the truth,
Right.
and like Miami, like it's going to be hard to win the division, before you even talk about beating a Kansas City.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? So.
The league is
and
getting
how
better.
long does
The league is getting better.
It's
Every
just
year.
it starts to change.
The next
man.
crop of guys
changed.
between Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes, like these guys is good.
I mean, the
Don't
Lions,
even-
Yeah, right, I
That's
mean,
amazing.
the Lions are good now.
Yeah,
You know?
facts.
Like,
Yeah. All right, one more round. Back to you, Trey.
All right, so Bill Belichick had a quote about you, and he said that you were in the top 5% all-time of players that he's coached from where they were in college to the NFL, just the way that you were able to pick up everything. Making that transition from college to the NFL, was there, like, did you immediately come in and guys recognize, like, you're the hardest worker here, you are the standard bearer, or did it take a little bit of time for you to kind of grind and prove yourself to be that guy to them?
No, I definitely had to grind and prove myself. I mean, you're coming into a facility and a culture where everyone's like you. I was a hard worker, but like so was everybody else. If you weren't, it really wasn't the place for you. And that's just like it just wasn't. Bill would get you out of there, and so I was coming to a place where everyone was kind of like me. Like the standard was high in work ethic. Like you're not going to show up in a off-season workout in May and just kind of bullshit your way through it. Like we're all competing and it's May or June or whatever it is, So, I think I had to I don't think I did anything special, to be honest with you. I think like at the end of the day, like I just built on consistency and just continued to raise my standard of being a football player. And, Bill's not going to keep you around if he can't trust you. And I think I really built trust over my first couple years. Like he's going to do what he needs to do. He's going to make some plays. Like you got to be productive in the league. If you're not productive, just take yourself out of the conversation. Like it's a production league. But if you can't be trusted either, then it's like, well, we're worried about winning games, not this guy, getting a sack or not, running up the field, trying to make a sack with a 2-back set. Like it's clearly a running play. You know what I mean? Like there's not, in that whole situation, I just had to build trust, I would say. And over those years, I did that. And as they gave me more responsibility, as like Boom alluded to with the PP position, making being a play caller, not giving up block punts for all those years, like he really started to trust me. And I think after that, you build trust not only on the field with your consistency and your production, but also like off the field with the way you work, the way you show up to meetings every day, like the type of dude you are. You're one of us like that we can really lean on to be a leader. Like I didn't come in and I'm like this leader, like follow me. I just did what was expected of me, but then I just did it at such a high level and did it so consistently that you start to get younger guys that come in and like, look at this dude. This is how he does it. And he's like one of our leaders. And it just happens. It's not like a forced leadership, if you will, and I think honestly, that's the best way to become leadership is organic because you've earned it. And, it's like Tom, like you just come in and you know what he's done and then you see him do it. It's just like, it's real. It's not some like you get in so many locker rooms and you might be able to speak to this, but like you just get these dudes just chirping, man. Like Tom didn't talk. Never. There was no rah-rah speeches. You know what I mean? Like this dude came in, like, let's handle our business. We're better. Like, blah, blah, blah. Let's go. Like, we all know what it's about. We've already put the work in. We don't need some speech 5 minutes before the game. They still got to do the national anthem and, all this stuff and kickoff, and you forget what was said. Like, we didn't do that. We didn't get down like that. All that hot air. Like, we weren't like that. Hot air? So, like, that was genuine leadership, and I think I just organically came into it through consistency, building trust, and just the person I was every day.
Is it part of it when you got in that environment too, Nate? You're like, oh, wait, it's a bunch of other cats like me. I can settle in. Because part of that is when you know you're in a room of killers and people that have that expectation and you believe that's how you are, I think it's more comfortable than it is the opposite way. To where it's like, you already know, I already know what this dude's about.
Yeah.
I see it. That's what I'm about.
Well,
now let me see, like, you know what I'm
absolutely,
trying to say?
absolutely. Because I went to New York and I got all these young dudes that like just don't get it, you know. And it's like, you know, you were the best of your college and you got drafted, and like you just kind of think like you get it, but you still don't. You're still a puppy, you know what I mean? And when I'm in New England like that, like I know I can compete with you and I can call you out if, you know, I'm not gonna hurt his feelings if I say, yo, like, you're weak today. Like, I don't know what it is, but you don't got it. And I'm going to bury you on this run. And, like, I can talk to him because he's not going to just go pout about it. And maybe he is for a moment, but, like, he knows I'm just coming at him from a place that's,
get
like,
better from it, though.
Yes. Whereas, like, if I talk to a kid in New York like that, like, they think, like, I'm fucked up. You know what I mean? And they don't get it. They take it personal. And we could talk about the young dudes now. It's different, but they're so the sensitivity level, man, is crazy. But it's just man, to that point, just you come into an environment where it's like-minded people, and sometimes I need somebody to say something to me. It wasn't always me. Sometimes I needed Devin McCourty to come in and be like, oh, you're a junkyard. He called me a junkyard dog. He said, oh, you're a junkyard dog, but not today, huh? And he would say stuff like that, and then I'd be like, all right. And that's all you need. And I'm not sensitive, and I know where Dev's coming from, and I love the guy like a brother, you know? So that just escalates your team and your level and your culture, because you can.
There's a healthy way to do it.
You can
and that's
talk
what
to
that
each
is,
other
though.
that way.
Yeah.
Yes. But, you know, I go to these young dudes, you can't speak to them like that. They don't get it. They get all their feelings hurt. Now they don't like you. Now they don't talk. And then they're behind doors chattering. And it's just like, it's unhealthy, toxic. And it's just like, you're not getting better.
Yeah.
Sensitivity, like, take the sensitivity shit and leave it at the door. Like, it is not a place for getting better.
Football is not really a sensitive sport.
Anything in life.
Yeah.
You know, you come to you trying to run a corporation, and you're trying to, like, yo, I need you to do this better, and blah blah blah, and like, this is where you're at, and you're not doing it for me. Like, that's productive, like, criticism to try to raise the level. Not like, I'm not on your head. Like, obviously we like you because you're here every day. I'm not taking it personal, like that personal shit, the sensitivity. Like, I can't be talked to a certain type of way, or my feelings are hurt. Like, man, like, just slowing. You're just sludge in the machine.
Good way to lose, huh?
You're just sludge in the machine. Yeah, it's absolutely. You just aren't going anywhere. You aren't going anywhere with that. So
it's fucking great. Sea Lover.
So you talk about how your standard and your capacity was challenged as you made it to each of those next levels, like going from being a kid getting out of high school to Ohio State, and then you thought you were working hard there, and then you feel that standard being challenged again, and your spectrum is broadening at that point for what hard work means and what it takes.
Absolutely.
So I know that along with your personal standard already being there, your culture, your relationship with your dad, all those things were already instilled in you to where you just weren't a quitter anyway. Mm-hmm. But you still were faced with that challenge of, even if it's just that voice in your head of saying, or as you mentioned earlier, are you going to quit? And obviously in your personal principle, your answer was no. Mm-hmm. But you're still faced with that in the moment, and you're ramped up and you're worn down if it's something physical. How did you talk a little bit about your process internally and some of the things that helped you self-regulate to where you were like, my answer is no, but I still have to make it be known that it's no, and let that out?
It's a really good question. You know, I think about, like, losing my dad, and we talked about that perspective. I wouldn't wish on anyone, but it made me very, self-reflective of my emotions, because I would get so angry, and I'd be just sitting there, just steaming, you know, and I'm like, wait, like, what? Nothing's happening right now. You need to chill out. You know, like, I became very, like, self-aware of, like, my emotional status. And I think, like, that's kind of turned into a superpower for me. Like, it will be very hard to get an emotional response out of me because I'm just too in control. And I think that kind of goes, that discipline or that strength in that, you know, you could take that into training and all that stuff. You know, I talked about athletic spectrum of Jamie Collins and someone being born in a wheelchair and like we're kind of here. I mean, I think the same thing goes for like mental fortitude and mental strength. There's some people that just like it's raining today and like they just can't get over it. And I don't know I think that can be a learned thing. We can all get better, just like athletically. Most of us can get stronger and stuff. But some people they're constantly negative. They can't find a way out of it. But on the other end of it, there are people that are just like, I can't be broken, and like they build on that, and they're a strong-minded person, and I like to think I'm down there. And I think when I get faced with those things, like it's as simple as what I said earlier is like this moment I'm in right now, nothing else matters, is this moment right now. Is it really that bad? Am I really just willing to quit all the energy I've put into this? You know, rugby was a big finder out in this, you know, thought process because the training was so hard. And, you know, you're 10 minutes into a 45-minute session. I call them a get fucked session because you just get fucked for 45 minutes. And, like, I'm sorry if I'm cussing.
No,
but, like,
please.
The first 10 minutes, you're already screwed, but you got to find a way to go for another half an hour plus. Like, where do you find that? It's just like, yeah, I can quit and drag myself through it, but, like, everything I've done, like, I've committed all this stuff I've done, all the 10 minutes I did before this, as simple as that. But ultimately, in this moment, and I might ask myself that 5 times in that next 30 minutes, but in this moment right here, in this exercise, when we're doing this, am I going to just throw the towel in? Am I ready to just stop? No. And you just keep saying no. And it's just that. No, and then take another step, take another step, take another step. Get lost in the moment of just the grind and keep on going. And then you let your mind wander to that, it kind of hurts, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I would say constantly ask yourself, is this the moment? And if you can say no, you'll keep going. And being extremely, extremely present in what you were doing doesn't allow your mind to go there. If you're super present and focused on whatever the task is, that's all that matters. Not my legs kind of hurt and I'm winded and like, or, you know, this is tough or somebody's being mean to me and I'm stressed out.
Voice.
Like, well, that's what it sounds like.
No, it's
just
exactly
a whiny,
what it sounds like.
It's the little bitch voice in your head.
I was like, you're a little bitch ass hoe right now.
If you can stay so present that voice is silenced, like you don't even have that conversation, but you're human. So when you do have it, you got to be real with yourself. Like everything you've done, you're about to just say it's all for naught because you're about to pack it in. Like, are you cool with that? And like, you just got to say no. So that's where I'm at.
Terrific. It's that self-talk, self-reflection. You already know the answer because you keep answering the proper way, but a lot of people don't ask themselves that. I literally, like for years back and forth, getting up at 4 a.m., it's like you have those days where like, can I just get my feet on the floor?
Yep.
Can I just look at myself in the mirror and say, are you a little bitch ass hoe today? Or are you going to go to the gym? I literally would say that to myself. Or that's where the wake your ass up came from. Like, or am I going to be one step further away from my goal or one step closer by making this happen today? Yeah. And then I string it together for 2, 4, 5, 8, 10 years, whatever. Mm-hmm. So when things happen or things, you know, come about, like I'm not really that surprised by it. Mm-hmm. I actually kind of expect it. But I'm hoping I have that day where my L drill feels good on the day when I need it to, you know what I mean? But that's what we're all working for. Absolutely. So that's why I love some of those points going back to it. All right, Trey.
Yeah, so like it seems like no matter what like the problem is, like you always like no matter what the idea is just like finding the solution and figuring out and making it happen. So like through like sports, your dad, all the lessons that you've learned, like what's kind of like that next thing that like you're trying to find that solution on?
In my personal life?
Yeah, that or athletically or whatever it may be. Yeah.
Well, right now it's getting healthy because I had some gnarly knee surgeries and, you know, whatever, I signed up for it, you know what I mean? But right now I want to get healthy and see where I'm at, but it's not really – this has been hard for me because it's not a reflection of how hard I work. It's more a reflection of my patience. I can work so hard I just start to hurt myself again. Like I can't outwork the healing process. Yeah. Like it's just – and that's – tough for me because I'm an arm wrestler. I'm just, you know, go dig in and it'll make it better. And I can't do that for this. So that's been really hard for me. But it goes back to like the whole philosophy of like, honestly, like controlling what you can control. And for me, in those moments of physical strain, I can keep taking another step forward. And for this, it's like, it's not about working hard. It's about using your time more efficiently outside of that or doing things nutritionally to help and doing all the things that I can, and ultimately controlling the controllables and just worrying about that. So right now it's, dealing with the health stuff, but I've got a couple personal projects. One big one, I start a company and, trying to get a patent and get some stuff done there, and, focusing on that as well. But, maybe make this book a movie. I've had a lot of chatter around that, but that's slower than my knee recovery with these guys. So we'll see if that ever happens. But, I got some stuff I'm working on, and, me and Boom were talking before, just kind of like that next chapter of like, finding what you're doing, but like also like finding the passion for the daily activities that you do, outside of going to like lift or smash somebody at practice. You don't do that anymore. So finding that it's a process for sure.
I like that you said it's not a reflection of my hard work, it's a reflection of my patience.
Mm-hmm.
That's a mic drop a little bit right there, because I think everybody has things in life where that's going to be apparent. This is just one of the major ones that's came up for you.
It's
and
hard
that's probably
for me
difficult
to swallow that.
Yeah, no, I feel that.
Like, my answer in my entire life has just been like,
work harder.
Just work harder.
Mm-hmm.
And like, honestly, for 99% of things like that,
it works most of the time.
It works most of the time. 90% of the time works every time.
Yeah.
Right? But yeah, this has just been different. So but I have to continue to be patient if I want it to be where I want it to be. And that's the answer. And it's like, at some point, it's like what we talked about, like the bitch voice or whatever, like thinking about that ain't getting me anywhere anymore. Like, I already know the answer is patience. So like, let's move on and let's use our time more efficiently. And that's kind of what I have to do.
I like that.
Until we're there.
Cool.
Yeah, what's one piece of advice that you would give to someone else who is also a walk-on, fighting for a spot, just a grinder? What's the one thing you'd say to them?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say that to anyone, don't let anybody tell you what you are or are not capable of. And whether that be on the football field, whether that be in the weight room, whether that be with anything, like no one can tell you what you are capable of. Like, shame on them, really, for speaking on that. When I first walked on, and I have a chapter in my book called I don't know what it's called, but they don't have kegs of beer on the sideline in the World Cup. Mm-hmm. So when I walked onto the football team, some coach came up to me, knew I played rugby, and he's like, they don't got kegs of beer on the sideline at the football games. And I looked at him and I said, they don't have kegs of beer on the sideline of the World Cups either. Just kind of like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
And it's like, ultimately, that idea of like, you think you know who I am, or like what I'm capable of, like honestly, shame on anyone. Like, the best coaches don't even try to put a ceiling on you. They just pump everything into you to try to make you whatever you can be. But all that comes from self-belief and persistence and work. And that's what I would say. Don't let anybody tell you what you are or are not capable of. Only you know the answer, and only you can find out.
Shame on them, but also I think like I had a few of those people in my life that I needed though.
Oh yeah.
Because I ran into them like when I first getting ready to start my gym. I was like 20 or whatever, and the guy told me, well, this person did that, and they couldn't do this, and I go, they ain't me though.
Exactly.
But I needed that though, because in those bitch moments,
I hate to admit that we need those people.
you know what I mean? So it's like shame on them, because you shouldn't want to do that.
I don't want to give them any fucking credit.
I thanked them though, like 15 years later.
But you don't want to give them any credit because it's like it was so negatively motivated.
Yeah.
But like at the end of the day, I think it's more a reflection, that's just John saying some hot air comment where you're the one who reacted to it.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of people that think they've got all the answers.
That's for sure.
Everything in life is not defined until it's over with. So we all have a say, especially in our own lives, on what the outcome's going to be, not somebody who thinks they've seen it before, because everything is different. Yeah. So
boom, I think we wrap it up there, bro. This is like, hey, for real, Nate, this is like a master class, bro, on how to operate.
Well, thank you.
I'm telling you. And this is exactly what I thought we was going to get, which is why I couldn't wait to get your ass here.
All right. You killed it.
For sure.
Now, hey, tell the people where they can get the book where they can order it, or?
Yeah, you can go to my website, nateebner.com, and click the shop blank, or just honestly, Amazon, Barnes & Noble. I mean, just Nate Ebner Finish Strong, a Google search, it'll come up. I mean, it's, easy to find. Urban made me write that. I wasn't really into, like, talking, and he's like, you need to tell your story. Or I didn't even play for Urban, and, I ended up tearing my ACL, and they like 6 months after we had that talk, and I said, you know what, I'll do it. And I'm really glad I did. It took a while, but we finally got it to a place where I feel like it's a very genuine, honest take on like my life. I tried like no ego, no fluff. It's just real, raw stuff. And it's honestly about, the relationship I had being the platform for me to do really cool things in sports, but ultimately coming back to the way I was raised with such a special man in my life. So
yeah, unbelievable. Urban made me do it as a soft flex. I'm just messing with you, Dave, because you're so humble. That's
I wasn't gonna do it.
No, I mean, I know you're telling the truth. It's amazing. Yeah. So good. All right, well, man, going to wrap us up, Cole.
Yeah, this is a banger episode. Please share this episode with your friends. We are grinding on Twitter. Twitter's popping. Me, Treadway, Content Kyle, we're crushing it at the Real Boomcast. Please share this with your friends.
All right, we out.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Good job.
Yep. No worries.